we're finally seeing more content being put onto the PvE. For a while, League was not receiving any updates, and it seemed like the developers were just trying to get a gauge for how the preseason is going. The dry spell is finally over though, and we've finally got more stuff to look forward to. Remember that the preseason is the best time for learning and improvement. Our website, GameLeap.com, is the best learning tool out there for you to help you improve your League of Legends gameplay. Over on our site, we've got hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. Check us out using the link in the description below, and if you're not quite sure yet, I'll tell you more at the end of the video. Now, to start things off, the new champion Aphelios is available for testing on the PvE server, so if you want to try him out before he hits the live servers, make sure to check him out there. For buffs and nerfs to existing champions, first we've got Akali, who has some reduced minion damage on her Q, as well as the hitbox that was behind her on that Q being removed. This is a pretty small nerf to Akali, simply because she doesn't really need that extra minion damage in order to kill the minions. With the change to Presence of Mind that was made a few patches ago, Akali is now actually able to use Q a lot more often, so just a little bit less damage, not a big deal. She's still going to be able to quickly shove waves if that is her goal. Being able to get more than 200 energy on Akali is much more impactful than what this nerf is. Next up, we've got buffs to Amumu, whose Q at rank 1 is going to be lowered by 2 seconds. This will, however, scale down to be the exact same cooldown as it is on live servers once you get that ability to max rank. These are pretty decent buffs for Amumu early on into the game. With his Q being available more often in the jungle, he's going to be able to do more damage, but he's also going to be able to get over walls more frequently. That is, of course, if there is something on the other side of that wall for him to Q to. This should help his clear a little bit, and it should help him with early ganks if he ever wants to repeat gank a lane after missing his Q for the first time. Once you do have Q maxed though, this buff will be non-existent. You're not going to be able to feel it at all. Next, we've got changes from our big, friendly, wholesome dude, Braum. These changes are geared towards making Braum a little bit tankier, so you end up standing behind Braum, and he doesn't end up standing behind you. Braum's base health per level and the base damage on his Q are both up. Braum's W is going to be a lower cooldown and mana cost, and it's going to make Braum a lot more tanky than he makes his ally. Braum is still going to give resistances to both him and the ally that he casts W on, but he's going to be getting 3 times as many resists as what his ally gets. This paired with Braum's shield might once again make Braum the best frontline support in the entire game. Finally, Braum's ultimate is going to be knocking up targets that are closer to him for longer. The damage on the ability is also upped at ranks 2 and 3, but this isn't really going to be noticeable. The increased knockup duration is still only going to apply to the first target hit. Everything else is only going to be knocked up for a quarter of a second, just like before. Diana is receiving a rework that swaps around where her abilities are. This is something Riot hasn't done in a very, very long time. In fact, the last time that I remember them doing this was when they moved TF's teleport from a basic ability onto his ultimate. The big change here for Diana is the fact that her E and her R are swapping places. Her new ultimate will still draw in people like her old E used to, except it will now deal damage as well. This damage is going to be increased for each additional target that she pulls in towards her, but the damage is going to be after a 1-second delay, so you're still going to have the opportunity to flash away from it. Her dash is now just going to be on her E, and it's basically going to be a less strong version of what it was. It's going to be doing less damage, but the reset mechanic with her Q is still there, which is the most important thing. Diana's shield is just receiving buffs with an additional 10% bonus HP ratio being added onto the shield, which didn't exist at all before. Her base mana and AD are being increased a little bit, and the mana cost on her Q is down. Finally, for Diana, her passive is being tweaked. The attack speed in Diana's kit is now just being normalized and added to her passive. After casting a spell, her attack speed is going to be tripled for 3 seconds, and she still has that same old passive where every third auto would cleave. The only thing missing from her new kit is any source of mana regeneration, which she did used to have. This does lower the viability of her double Doran's Ring start. This is because you're not going to be able to WQ every single wave and still have the same amount of mana on the next wave. If she wants to keep her mana up, she's going to be forced to take blue, just like any other mid laner. Ezreal's got some buffs that were already hotfixed onto the live servers a while ago. Just to be clear, he's not receiving any further buffs. These buffs already went through, but we wanted to update everybody just to make sure that they know that these happened. His base health and mana went up, and the damage on his Q also went up by 5. Garen is once again receiving more nerfs to his E. It's going to take him more attack speed to get extra spins, and each spin that he gets is going to deal a little bit less damage per level. Next up, we've got some nerfs to Senna. At the moment, Senna is just performing way too well. So there are a few different ways that Riot is looking to nerf her, but these changes are still quite up in the air. First of all, the rate at which minions drop souls is down. The AD ratio on Senna's Q is also down. Senna's W will be rooting for a lower duration early on into the game, and her ultimate is receiving an increase to the AP ratio. Yuumi is receiving some pretty heavy changes. The shield on her passive is going to be larger later on into the game, and the auto attack is once again going to restore mana. The AP ratio is being lowered on Yuumi's Q, and in exchange, the base damage is going to be upped a little bit. There's some new rules on Yuumi's W, which add a cast time to the ability, and if she gets hit with any immobilizing CC, it's going to put the ability on a cooldown. The biggest pending change, however, would be the change that makes it so that Yuumi cannot teleport with her target anymore. If this change does go through, it's going to be a pretty massive nerf for Yuumi. Her E is receiving some adjustments. First of all, it's not going to be on a charge-based system anymore, so you're not going to be able to store that additional heal. Instead, it's just going to be on a flat cooldown starting at 12 seconds at rank 1, down to 9 seconds at max rank. However, it also is going to give attack speed on top of the movement speed, and that's going to be for a 1 second longer duration as well. The heal's AP ratio is going to be going up, the movement speed is not going to be decaying, and the base heal is going to be going up for the minimum heal. Finally, the ability is no longer going to give you increased healing based on the target's missing HP. This is going to make it so the ability is much more useful in its bursts, but you're not going to be able to space them out over time. The ability is also just going to give you a lot more upfront. Since there's no longer any incentive to be using it when a target is low, whenever you're going to be receiving the max heal is when you should just be using the ability, because it gives movement speed and attack speed, things that ADCs really like. The last change on the PvE is Riot's attempt to finally address ranged champions taking Conqueror. The fact of the matter is that ranged champions are typically going to be able to use extended fighting keystones better than melees are, because they're able to stay in combat much easier. For this reason, Riot is looking to make the benefit that ranged champions get from fighting an extended fight with Conqueror fully stacked a little bit less. Healing for ranged champions taking Conqueror is going to be reduced to 8% from 15%. That's almost cut in half. The stack duration for everyone is also going to be lowered by 2 seconds, and this is to prevent people from using a second cycle of their cooldowns with Conqueror already fully stacked, something that isn't really intended to be done, especially in the early game. Now, there are definitely some champions that are still going to be able to get a second cycle of their cooldowns with Conqueror fully stacked really early on into the game, like Riven for example, but it's going to be a lot fewer. One last thing that I did want to mention is that although Omnistone isn't receiving any hard changes, there is a bit of a coding change to the keystone. While it is impossible to tell what these changes are going to do exactly without any hard numbers, it should be more playable for more champions. There are certain scenarios where certain runes are more useful than other runes, and Omnistone's new smart logic is going to try and fit those runes into those situations more frequently. Like I said, until I'm able to get either exact numbers or the ability to play a lot of this consistently, I'm not going to be able to tell whether or not this is a buff, a nerf, or how big of a deal this actually is. If you haven't already, make sure to check out our website, GameLeap.com. There, you'll find hundreds of guides, all done by challenger players just like me, sorted into a quick and easy to use courses system. We have courses both on the 5 fundamental roles as well as champion specific courses, so if that is something that interests you, then make sure to check us out using the link in the description below. As always, I'm Panther, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.